companies like Zomato, the way the Uber disrupted the whole transportation, Zomato and some of the Indian startup firms like Flipkart and other, they disrupted whole the way the entire distribution channel in the food delivery is managed. And this is, I think, the time has come probably for the startups to do that. And I am very sure the biggest thing in the industry, which I think we are dealing with the coffee. Coffee, you have seen that using the traditional technologies, we are not likely to grow. If you look into between 2002 and 2001, the production in India increased only by 1.1 times. But the production in Vietnam during the same period, last 20 years, increased by 2.6 times. And this was the result of, from 700, 1,000 metric tons to 1845, again the units, which was almost 2.6 times. So I think it is the time for the startups and innovation. Another thing, if you look into the exports, unless you innovate, and which the startups has got capability, you stand still. And there is a German saying, when the whole world is going forward and you stand still, you are automatically going backward. I got experts in Brazil, and I'll tell them that the Brazil's basically exports in US dollar million, in the value terms increase from 1200 to 8542 across last 20 years, but in terms of their share remained 18.5% over the last 20 years, which did not increase. Share increase for the countries which took, refuse in the startups and innovation. Incidentally, India, in the value terms, our exports increased from 143 million to 760, but I think the share in the world market in the exports for India came down from 2.2% to 1.6%. And therefore, I think this is the right panel you chose to come with. Last thing I also need to say that the biggest thing is price realization. The industry is facing with, the production is increasing, demand is stagnant. Demand you can get from two things. One from the international market, one from the domestic market. And I think to my Indian friends, let me tell you that, the India's demand of coffee, the domestic consumption, increased only by 1.6% in the last 20 years from 973 to 148 units, 1485 units, wherein in case of Brazil, it increased drastically to 2.7 times. And therefore, there is no shortcut for price sustainability. I think many panels talk about sustainability of the environment, but in case you cannot sustain the stakeholders in coffee industry, the producers, the retail chain, the distributors in terms of the price, kindly understand the sustainability of coffee industry is difficult, and it is only the startups and innovation which can go. I think let me give this thing, one is the price realization in the international market. There are vast differences in the price realization. In the last 20 years, India's price realization for coffee increased only by 1.4 times, wherein in case of Colombia, it increased in 2.3 times. So, I am so fortunate to be a panel of international nature in real terms, which I think, and therefore, I wish that all of you and all the participants from across the countries should, I think, take advantage of the deep insights that my colleagues have got. I think I take this opportunity to introduce each of my panel members first before I think we go. One, we have got Professor Fabio Morenia da Silva from Federal University of Lavras, Brazil. Give him a big hand. Professor Fabio. Thank you. Professor Fabio works in the area of machinery and agriculture, mechanization, and he has credit to mechanizing the coffee harvesting unparalleledly, and he has been part of some of the largest coffee fairs in Latin America. Over to you, Professor Fabio da Silva.
Hello. Som. Good morning. Permission speaker Português, Brasil. O tema que me foi abordado é bastante desafiador. Eu trabalho na Universidade Federal de Lavras há 37 anos, fazendo um histórico da minha linha do tempo em trabalho e conhecimento. Quero destacar também o grupo de inovação tecnológica que nós criamos para acelerar o desenvolvimento tecnológico, a inovação tecnológica na cafeicultura, em especial colheita, quando estamos trabalhando nessa linha. Eu confesso que mudei a minha apresentação 3 vezes, ao tempo que fui conhecendo a cafeicultura da Índia, para que eu pudesse escolher o melhor formato de apresentação e conseguir transferir e contar para vocês todos o que nós estamos fazendo de inovador dentro das propriedades rurais cafeeiras. Este é o parque tecnológico onde está o nosso grupo de inovação tecnológica dentro da Universidade Federal de Lavras. Essa imagem não está errada, mas é a minha família. Ao meu lado, essa linda mulher é minha esposa. Meus filhos, minha mãe, meus irmãos estão todos aí. Por quê? É o porquê trabalhamos e para quem trabalhamos. Isso me remete a um conceito de saudade. Saudade não tem tradução do português. Saudade significa querer estar junto. E eu tenho certeza que a semana que vem vou estar com saudade dos indianos. Qual é o nosso propósito dentro de uma conferência mundial? É o povo, é a população mundial. Eu não falo simplesmente daqueles que tomam café. A preocupação não é também com aqueles que não tomam café simplesmente, mas a minha grande preocupação em transferir o que nós estamos fazendo no Brasil é sobre as pessoas que produzem café, os produtores, os cafeicultores. E aí eu gosto de falar de um princípio. O princípio maior, que é o legado que nós temos de tirar do solo o nosso sustento. E o homem vem fazendo isto dessa forma, com o próprio trabalho braçal, com os animais de tração e também com ferramentas rudimentares, isso até 120 anos atrás. Lembrando que fator de produção agrícola não é simplesmente o solo, o ar, a água e o sol. Mas tem um fator importantíssimo que é o trabalho, e o trabalho compete ao homem. Desde que inventaram o motor, precisava saber qual era a potência desses motores para realizar trabalho. E compararam com a potência dos animais de tração. Então, quando nós falamos de um trator de 50, 100 CV de HP, estamos comparando com 50, 100 animais de tração no que podem fazer de trabalho em uma jornada diária. E aí fomos ver a potência do homem. E aí muita decepção, 0,1 CV. Eu falo que os homens têm capacidade de pensar, mas somos limitados em realizar trabalho, principalmente o trabalho agrícola. Então, uma máquina facilmente supera ou substitui no campo de 50 a 100 homens. Uma colhedora de café, de 80 a 120 homens, porque dispõe de potência muito grande. Nós temos 2 diretrizes na produção agrícola. Na vertical, a energia solar, a planta e o solo. Mas na horizontal, nós temos a nossa função, realizar trabalho. E aí vem a pergunta, como vamos realizar o trabalho? Essa é uma realidade que começamos a viver 25 anos atrás no Brasil. Nós vemos a drástica redução de mão de obra ao longo dos anos. Atualmente, apenas 4% da população do país, de 203 milhões de pessoas, estão na agricultura. Só para colher o café no Brasil, são necessários 565 mil homens, trabalhadores rurais. Essa é a região sul de Minas, onde está localizada a Universidade Federal de Lavras, e nós trabalhamos. É a maior região produtora de café do Brasil, que chega a produzir em média 12 milhões de sacas. Cada um desses pontos marcados é uma lavoura cafeeira, com as suas declividades. Era importante para nós sabermos qual era realmente as nossas limitações em termos de mecanização. E o resultado que tivemos, 81% das lavouras cafeeiras estão em áreas mais planas possíveis de mecanizar, e apenas 19% em áreas de montanha. Então essa é a nossa realidade. Temos áreas planas e áreas montanhosas. Um total de 1.500 hectares de áreas que permitem a mecanização, 760 mil hectares que precisam de uma mecanização especialmente desenvolvida. Para as áreas mais planas, as colhedoras de café. Já existem no Brasil desde 1980, mas havia uma resistência muito grande dos produtores rurais em adotar essa tecnologia. O que nos forçou a adotar a tecnologia foi realmente a falta de mão de obra. Mas ainda tínhamos um desafio: a maturação desuniforme das plantas. Plantas com a parte superior muito madura e a mesma planta com a parte inferior não madura, muito verde. Como colher uma planta assim mecanicamente? Então, se fôssemos fazer colheita plena, isso seria o produto colhido, um crime contra a qualidade do café. Desenvolvemos tecnologia de regulagem de máquinas, protocolos, trabalhando velocidade, vibração, distribuição das varetas, a regulagem apropriada para cada lavoura cafeeira, e conseguimos, da mesma lavoura, tirar basicamente frutos maduros, colheita seletiva. Esse é um exemplo que nós tivemos quando fomos na Costa Rica. À direita é uma colheita a dedos, manual, seletiva. À esquerda, a colheita mecanizada que realizamos no Brasil. Tivemos que trabalhar conceitos como força de desprendimento do fruto para definir as melhores regulagens da colhedora. Desenvolvemos equipamentos, que já são equipamentos de mercado hoje, para orientar a regulagem das colhedoras junto aos produtores rurais. Olha que eu gosto de mostrar essa imagem. Nós vemos frutos verdes, frutos maduros na mesma planta, antes de passarmos com a colhedora. Após a passagem da colhedora, só restaram os frutos verdes, que vão amadurecer 25, 30 dias após, na segunda vez que vamos estar passando com a máquina. E para as regiões inclinadas, o que nós temos a falar, o que foi desenvolvido? Foi desenvolvido, primeiro, os terraços, para possibilitar a entrada de tratores, principalmente microtratores, nas áreas cafeeiras. Olha aí um terraço sendo construído, lavoura depois de terraceada. Essa área eu chamo de agricultura regenerativa. Em 2012 foi plantada essa lavoura, depois de terraceada, e um ano após, os terraços já estavam protegidos com gramínea. Nós usamos lá a braquiária, protegendo o solo para não deixar da erosão e aumentando, inclusive, a absorção de água no solo com os terraços. Mecanização de terraços, fertilização, pulverizações. A colheita nas áreas de montanha ficaram mais facilitadas com a construção do terraço, O homem passou a fazer de 5 medidas, de 36 quilos, para 20 medidas por dia, diminuindo relativamente o custo operacional. Em 2016, nós tivemos na ZIC, na China, para apresentar os nossos trabalhos em mecanização, que muito me surpreendeu, que a China queria plantar café, está plantando café nos espaçamentos para a mecanização rural, mesmo com tantas pessoas possivelmente disponíveis para o trabalho. E nós fizemos esse estudo baseado nesses valores. Um trabalhador rural com ganho mensal de $400. O operador de trator, $600 mensais. E um operador de colhedouras em torno de $1.000 mensais. E aí estão os resultados em comparação
Professor
à
Fabio,
colheita
you have to
manual.
complete in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
10 ou 15?
5.
Sim, mais sim. Tá. Da colheita manual, o custo era de $4,48. Quando nós fizemos a semi-mecanização, cai para $2,44. E nós chegamos, na mecanização, a redução de 56% dos custos. E ainda temos um sistema chamado supermecanizado, onde todas as operações são feitas com máquina, com redução de 67% em relação à colheita manual. Exemplo de colheita de máquinas portáteis na semi-mecanização, também tratores, mulas mecânicas, cavalos mecânicos, triciclos, muito utilizado no Brasil. Colheita do Cunilon, também conseguimos fazer a colheita do Canefra Cunilon com colhedoras automotrizes. Esse é um exemplo que eu gosto de dar e chamo de agricultura sustentável. Esse produtor não usa mais glifosato, ele faz o plantio primeiro da braquiária, da gramínea, depois ele abre 1 metro para plantar as mudas de café, depois ele vem roçando 5 a 6 operações anuais, produzindo de 15 a 25 toneladas de biomassa, como adubação natural. pH equilibrou naturalmente, o índice de matéria orgânica vem subindo, esse produtor tem sido uma referência na nossa região. Um volume muito grande de matéria orgânica debaixo das plantas, possibilitado pela mecanização, com a eliminação do uso do glifosato. Também estamos trabalhando em derriçadores portáteis seletivos. Derriçadores que colhem toda a planta no Brasil, portáteis, já existem. Mas o nosso desafio agora é fazer a colheita seletiva. Temos alguns projetos, estamos trabalhando nesse desafio. Colheita mecanizada até 50% de declividade na montanha. Uma parceria que fizemos com 2 empresas, a Mac Reis no Brasil e a Antônio Carraro, uma empresa italiana que também está presente no Brasil. Um fato interessante, nós observamos no Brasil que a colheita de montanha é feita por pares, normalmente casais, marido e mulher. E as mulheres ficavam recolhendo o café do chão. Depois elas começaram, e os homens usavam os derriçadores portáteis. Depois os homens começaram a usar, as mulheres começaram a usar derriçadores portáteis e puseram os homens para recolher o café do chão, porque as mulheres passaram a se sentir mais valorizadas. A tecnologia valoriza o homem, valoriza a mulher do campo. Um jovem, quando ganha um celular, se sente mais valorizado. O homem, quando compra o seu primeiro veículo, se sente valorizado. E quando nós pegamos o trabalhador rural e colocamos tecnologia na mão dele, ele se sente também mais valorizado. Por que eu estou falando isso? Já estou encerrando. Esse é o comportamento do perfil da mão de obra na Europa, de 1850 até recentemente. Esse estudo segue o que aconteceu com a teoria de Malthus, que dizia que nesse século a humanidade estaria passando fome. Mas isso não aconteceu. Por quê? Um dos pontos limitantes que Malthus apontava era a capacidade de mão de obra. Em 1850, ele não contava com a possibilidade de motores com potência para desenvolver trabalho. Então, era necessário 4 homens para produzir alimentos para eles mesmos e apenas mais um homem em outras atividades. Em apenas 50 anos, esse perfil mudou. E o que aconteceu de novo? Inovação tecnológica. Surgiram os motores e os tratores, com uma capacidade muito maior de realizar trabalho. E um homem passou a produzir alimento para eles mesmos e mais 4 pessoas em outras atividades. Mais recentemente, na Europa, um homem produz para 67 pessoas. Na Alemanha, um agricultor produz para 80 outras pessoas. No Brasil, nós estamos no período intermediário, cada agricultor produzindo para 17 outras pessoas. Eu quero fechar minha apresentação falando sobre isso, porque o que eu tinha destacado, a preocupação que eu quero trazer para essa conferência é o homem produtor. Como manter o produtor no campo? 4% de pessoas trabalhando na agricultura no Brasil são muito poucas pessoas que precisam ser valorizados pelos programas de governo, pelas indústrias, por toda a sociedade que se alimenta. Tomar um café é muito confortável e prazeroso, mas não é o mesmo sentimento de quem está produzindo. Então, o nosso grande desafio não foi desenvolver as máquinas. O nosso grande desafio no Brasil foi a mudança de mentalidade para poder os próprios produtores adotarem as tecnologias. E o desafio que temos agora, nesse momento e no futuro, vai ser como fixar o homem no campo. Porque não temos trabalhadores suficientes. A China já está preocupada com isso, o Vietnã está preocupado com isso, a América Central não tem trabalhadores suficientes. Aqui eu espero que vocês possam ter esse equilíbrio de trabalhadores. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful, session. And now I think, thank you so much. So, we'll have discussion at the end of all the, panelists complete. Now I invite, a young bright lady to the left of me, Miss Brianna Dickey. She is founder and CEO of Crop Connex, United States of America. She basically comes from the startup capital of the world, which is San Francisco. And Brianna Dickey is a Harvard graduate student who is licensed Arabica Q grader and founder CEO of Crop Connex, which is a software platform designed to unlock economic opportunity across global supply chain. And I think she has done her programs across Colombia, Ethiopia, and many countries. So over to you, Brianna. Brianna, carry on. 10 minutes to go.
All right. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Brianna Dickey, and I'm the founder of Crop Connex, a digital coffee trading platform. And I'm excited to be able to share with you today some technology that's improving supply chain efficiencies. Now, as a Q Arabica grader and a post-harvest processing professional, my area of expertise is green coffee. Before Crop Connex, I spent about 6 years working as a consultant in optimizing supply chain efficiencies to increase the overall volume and value of our global green coffee exports. At the beginning of that journey, I started studying our agricultural systems and found a shocking statistic that I hear echoed at the event today. In our current systems of trade, where products change hands from one person to another in an incredibly fragmented supply chain, we see mass inefficiencies resulting in over $700 billion of waste every single year in product loss and uncapitalized markets. Now, this is an incredible opportunity for the industry to recapture those wasted costs. According to the World Economic Forum, if we were to have better supply chain coordination, we could increase GDP by 5% and increase international trade by 15%. So this begs to question, what are these challenges? What are the biggest barriers to trade? Unfortunately, this affects small and medium-sized businesses the most, that often face challenges with market access, logistics infrastructure and coordination, and navigating really complex regulatory markets for trade and export. So I designed a system that would systematically address each one of these barriers to increase the participation of small and medium-sized businesses in international trade. Today, we have a digital supply chain that offers information exchange, market coordination, and data visibility. What I found is that data is the key to unlocking economic opportunity across our value chain. Now we have data silos, and to break down the existing fragmented data silos for that market accessibility and market visibility, we've created a connected ecosystem. We've developed a solution that digitizes each layer of the value chain at each critical juncture. Let me take a moment to describe how this works. The first layer is an e-commerce marketplace, providing the access for buyers and sellers to identify each other. And then underneath that is information management to be able to organize the data around the products being sold, the quality analysis, the sales records, and payment information. But underneath that, we've plugged in all of the third-party providers that are required to be able to move the product from one end of the value chain to the next, integrating with banks, integrating with freight providers, airlines, and maritime freight. And below that, we have a compliance infrastructure to ensure that all of the documents and paperwork that are created on the platform is within compliance of the regulatory environments for coffee trade, for exports and imports. Now, let me demonstrate how this all ties together. So a seller would be able to list their products online with information about the quantity, the quality, and the sales terms. Buyers would then be able to search the products in a marketplace, see information about the supplier, verify origin, and request an estimate for the total costs of goods and services. Behind the scenes, we help connect with third-party providers for logistics. We consolidate all of these smaller orders together, and we optimize the trade routes to reduce the time to delivery and the overall costs. Then the buyer would be able to create a digital contract online, automatically registered with the regulatory authorities. They'd receive automatic updates as the product is prepared for export, and would be able to make online payments in a secure system through the platform. This comprehensive system creates a fully integrated solution that connects buyers and sellers and logistics providers in one place, increasing the access for new participants to engage in international trade, whether they're small or whether they're large players. But the value of digitization doesn't end there. See, data really is the key in being able to provide benefits to the entire industry for price discovery mechanisms, for reduced costs, for reduced clerical error and contract defaults. We can see improved traceability and quality preservation, and we can de-risk the trade for everyone involved. So for me, it's clear. The future of coffee is connected. Thank you.
Very good. thank you, Brianna. So our next, thank you for such a nice, presentation on the very critical issue of the supply chain. We'll discuss at the end. Then, next is Marcus Velejemoro. He is the business development manager from Global Coffee Aroma Protection Syntajon. And
Can you hear me?
he is a the firm is a leading supplier and packaging and processing equipment for food and pharma industry and responsible for primary packaging solution for the global coffee industry. So I think we would have some insight from him. He has got 20 years of experience in the food industry. So over to you, Mr. Marcus. Marcus, please carry on.
Can you hear me? So, good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I would like today to take you to we would say, the latest stage of the coffee value chain. We have talked about and seen a lot about farming, harvesting, tracing, sourcing, but there's one part in the coffee value chain which I think all of us, which are coffee enthusiasts, will have experienced, and I think this plays a major role in achieving sustainability, and that is how the product we all love is packaged. The packaging is something everyone is aware of. It is seen and publicly discussed because packaging also plays a major role, because it has to protect the product, but also, you are all aware, packaging creates waste. And one of the key difficulties in achieving sustainability is avoiding the littering by packaging waste. Therefore, I think it's valid to have a look into what we say sustainable packaging. I'll explain that. So first of all, maybe you don't know maybe our company. The company is called Syntagon Technology. It is, you would say, one of the leading suppliers of equipment to the food processing and packaging industry. We have a very long tradition in packaging technology, so we build equipment and machines, and we have been in the industry, specifically in the coffee industry, for more than 100 years. So when our company started, the way coffee was packaged, and I think this is rather interesting, it started with paper. When the industrialization started by end of the 19th century, paper was the sole packaging material. So coffee beans were packaged in paper. That's something I'm gonna come back because maybe. So the company Syntagon, maybe some of you know, was formerly known as Bosch Packaging, belonged to a big German conglomerate. Now it's independent, so we have now our own name. Well, what we are doing is we try to accompany our coffee processing and coffee roasting customers. We provided equipment, but we also give them consulting. We accompanying them, and we are doing testing, and we'll come into that specifically. Because coffee is not just roasting. You have to pack it properly. So first of all, it's important to understand. You say, well, packaging, what's so special about packaging? Everything needs to be packaged. But for the case of coffee, you have to be more specific, because the general purpose of packages, you know, is to protect, to be able to ship it to a consumer. It has to be appealing, so it has a marketing purpose. But there are two things that are new or important for coffee. First of all, and you all know that, the quality of product is its aroma. A packaging that does not preserve the aroma is not appropriate. And as coffee is the most sensitive, one of the most sensitive food products, the packaging has to be specifically designed to protect the valuable coffee aroma. So the requirements are higher than in most other food products. That has to be covered. The second point is the new demand. Everyone knows we should not only protect, but the packaging has to be sustainable, has to be eco-friendly. That is an aspect that was not really covered in the past. I'll show you why. In the past, the protection function and the marketing function was the sole goal. Now the packaging has to be eco-friendly, has to be sustainable. That is a new and also a very challenging requirement, and that requires really high technology. We need to implement all we know, because to meet all those goals in one is not trivial. So if you look to a typical packaging process, and I've taken a coffee roasting and processing plant, there are two value streams, we call it. The one with a product that all of you know, all of your experts, processing, roasting, grinding, spray drying, that's the product part. But then there is the other value stream, which we consider, which is also a complex, multi-stage process. And the end of it is the consumer product. So the coffee that can be sold as a commercial product. So it's packed in a bag, primarily. I will focus in this session on flexible packaging, which means using plastic film, because this is the most widely used packaging material also for coffee. And if you look into this value chain, you become aware that, first of all, one input, apart from the product, is the material. And there is not only one material, but there are a lot of materials. If you, for example, look into a premium coffee product, you become aware that you will have, for example, a film, so the process starts from a film. But you also have additives and accessories, like a label. Sometimes you have to close the bag, then you have a closure system. So all these components have to be taken into consideration when you design a packaging process or design a sustainable product. Now, when we talk about coffee, there is one important thing you have to understand. Coffee requires a high barrier. So the material has to be a high barrier material. We call this high barrier film. Now, what is used, how it's done in reality, we need a structure that is not a simple plastic film that you would imagine, but the films that are used for coffee packaging, they are a result of a long process, what we call a so-called multi-layer process. So the material is not just one material, like it seems because it's all plastic. No, it's composed of several parts, several layers. Therefore, we call it a multi-layer. So in the middle, what you see here, the important thing is the middle, which is the actual barrier against oxygen and water vapor. This is key. This is the part you need for packing coffee. Then there is, for example, the outer layer of a film. This is the thing you see, the consumer's aware. This is the printable layer. This is the marketing part. And then there is another layer inside, which most are not aware of. That is a functional layer, because we have to close the bag. We have to seal. We have to make a plastic bag that is tight. So therefore, all coffee packaging films will be rather developed and sophisticated, and that also is the key problem for sustainability. Because there are a variety of possibilities, so all these layers can be composed of different plastic materials, aluminum. That makes it so diverse. When you now look into what is common, and maybe all of you have already, the conventional material that are used, and that has been using, I would say, for more than 30 years in the coffee industry, was a simple structure that had 3 layers. Maybe you're aware. It had a polyester outer layer. This is the one, and was chosen because it's beautifully printable, because the marketeers want to make the coffee bag shine. So they chose the material that has the best printability, the best touch for the consumer. They chose an aluminum film inside, because aluminum is the best protector against oxygen and vapor barrier. So logically they took aluminum. Now aluminum is a metal. And they took a very thick polymer, a polyethylene layer in the inside, because they had to make sure that every bag is tight. That is the standard. But you see there's one difficulty. This is a non-sustainable solution, because the material cannot be reused. If the goal is a circular economy, you need to be either recycle it or compost it. This structure, everyone agrees, is non-recyclable. And of course it's also non-compostable, because it cannot be degraded. It's a polymer, it's metal. So this structure now represents a true challenge. And there is now a lot of legislation, and a lot of the leading companies have decided to replace this standard by something more sustainable. Now the question is, what are the options? And there are 3 options available. All of them have pros and cons. One option was, we make, instead of synthetic plastics that are taken from oil, we could use renewable. There are plastics, polymers, that are taken from natural resources. There is polyethylene made from alcohol, from sugarcane. There is polyethylene that can be taken from other rootstuff. This has been done, so you could assume this is a sustainable solution. The problem, however, is, under the current goal, it's neither recyclable. So most of the customers, most of the companies who are looking would say, if the legislation does not certify that, it's not usable. It is a sustainable alternative, but it does not meet the specific goals that have been formulated. So the second option is, and maybe you have heard, because this really is a very fast-moving and very exciting field, the use of compostable structures. Now, compostable structures have to be developed. And there are a lot of startups that try to develop compostable film structures. The problem is they are very difficult to make, and they have very small quantities. So the price of these compostable laminates at the moment is very high. But this is one of the fields which will grow. You will see there's a big discussion, for example, in Europe, where the compostability maybe will come for coffee capsules. There's an ongoing discussion that in Europe maybe coffee capsules will have to be compostable. And the second and the third option, and this really is the field where a lot of work is done and progress has been made, maybe you've heard about it, is to choose polymers that can be fully recycled. Because the common sense is, if we can recycle packaging waste, this is really a sustainable solution. We are avoiding something, we are putting back materials into a circular loop. Here there are 3 options. They're all based on polyolefins. Now, polyolefins are either polypropylene or polyethylene, and they're mixtures. All those 3 structures have the advantage they are recyclable. So there's a very high interest from the chemical industry, as from also legislation to use this, what we call monomaterial polyolefin structures. All of them are recyclable. All of them exist and have been tested on machines. They are, of course, not compostable. Now, but there's one important thing, and that's really a challenge for the industry. As the old structures were optimized for best performance, the new structures have a problem. They are very difficult to process. And one of the examples is what we call the processing window. So the processing window in packaging is very small, which means you are very limited. You have to be very careful. You cannot use any machine. So this is a challenge where the equipment industry, the coffee roasters, and the suppliers have to work on. And this is also why there is a new way of approaching it. In the past, you could buy any kind of film. It was standardized. Now, there is no available film, so you have to set up a project. So a customer, or if you as a coffee converting company want to change from a conventional packaging to this new recyclable packaging, you will not be able to do this alone. You will need to team up with the other stakeholders. And the other stakeholders in the industry, for example, are the film supplying industry, which is a big industry, and of course the equipment manufacturer, because alone you will not be able to simply implement that. And that is a very new, I would say, phenomenon in our industry, a collaboration, a true collaboration between suppliers and their customers. This is a new model, but this is the only hope to move on fast. So, of course, the benefit is, we can gather and share information. Now, what we are doing is, and I'm coming to the end, what we have to do together is we analyzing the critical parts in a factory, and there are some critical parts, and we try to adapt to these critical areas in a process. And I give you 3 examples what has been done. One example here, that is a customer here in India, a leading converting. Here, for example, you see a solution. It is a machinery, it's a package, a complete packaging line for an instant and soluble product for mixes that has been done and executed by our subsidiary here in India, Syndico in India, and it shows that really we can provide a complete solution for this kind of product. A second example is taken from the specialty coffee field. Now, specialty coffee normally means you need also to have premium bags. The bags have to convey the same message as the coffee. It has to be top-notch. So therefore, you see, the bag styles is very elaborated. But the problem is, this also is the most demanding process for the packaging. But we were able, for example, to implement a mono PE, what we call quad seal bag, so a nice looking bag, on a real full production system. This is a roaster in the northern part of Europe, which he wanted to implement that. We helped him. And the last, and that's also an example more for markets which use the so-called brick. Now, the brick pack is a very nice one, but it is a very sensitive pack. So this was actually the most difficult part, converting these lines to new recyclable materials, for example, mono PP films. So we do see it's possible, but it requires, as I said, it's still a long way to go, and it needs proper collaboration of all stakeholders that are active in this part of the coffee value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus, for such an important presentation on the packaging. And I'm sure that all of you know that how packaging is important. Now, the next speaker is, German Alberto. He is, I think, comes with a lot of experience because he is the CEO of the Colombian Coffee Growers Federation, and which has got integrated coffee production by 540,000 families across 600 towns, nationwide in Colombia. He is basically an agro-industrial engineer and a great cyclist as well. And it has been, the way Colombian coffee is something from which I think we need to learn, all of us, because Colombian coffee in the international market realizes, probably among the highest price of, 6,339 unit, which was given, against the 2,800 US dollar price realized by India. So Colombian coffee, in comparison to Indian coffee, realizes 2.3 times the price, and Colombian coffee realizes almost double the price, slight less than double than the Brazilian coffee. And therefore his experience in integrating with the small farmers across Colombia, primary processing, and creating a network wherein the farmers get a bigger price realization, and price realization remains the key challenge for producers, not only in India, but all the developing countries. Over to you, German, for your insightful session. Carry on.
Professor, thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a truly honor to be here and represent these 548,000 families that are growing the coffee in our country. So I appreciate the invitation that Vanusia Nogueira made me to be in this forum and to talk about technology. Technology is something that is in my DNA, so it's something that I want to share with you. And today, beyond telling about the development of a startup that my colleagues are doing, I'm about to talk about a very respectful company in the coffee industry. That is obviously the National Federation of Colombian Coffee Growers. That is, it's been for a while in the coffee industry. But it's also to tell you that with that invaluable brand that we do have, and that we are going to celebrate the 100 years very soon, what we want to do is to see how to build the bridge for 100 years more. And this is only if we implement technology in our coffee plantations. So, in other words, what I come to share with you is how we plan to build that, no? And to share with you our dream, my dream, the dream that is being shared by these 4 members of the coffee board that I do have the pleasure to have here, and how we are gonna implement that dream. And we have to admit that, as Steve Jobs said, we have to have some madness to be able to think differently. And it's all about that. And why I mention Steve Jobs is because I have recently worked for the most admired company in the world, in the IT and the consumer electronics, but in the world, that is Apple. And I'm not talking about how Apple is doing in that market that they play, and is how they have been doing that, and how they have been broken paradigm and developed consumer electronic products that have changed the world. And in that sense, how we are going to do that. And I just changed an apple for a coffee bean. And we should we should be crazy enough to do so, but it's my passion and my romantic to be here and to work for the coffee growers in Colombia. But today I want to share with you three goals which I believe that technology should reach the coffee plantations or the coffee business in order to transform it. And only three. And the first one is the technology in the coffee production. And talking about that, let's have this in mind, is precision agriculture in the coffee fields. The technology has come in order to change the way we do our coffee plantations and the processes. And precision agriculture is something that we have been seeing in other agriculture sectors, which can support with sensors, drones, satellite imagery, and the coffee producers in order that they can monitor the vital parameters, such as the soil conditions, the humidity, for instance, the temperature, and more. And that wealth of data is very much important because it will empower the coffee farmers in order to make informed decisions about the irrigation, the fertilization, and the pest control, for instance. By targeting those resources where they are needed the most, we reduce the waste and enhance the yield. That is very much important in order to get the productivity and obviously the profitability of the business. The smart irrigation is something very important, and much more now with the climate change. You know perfectly, one of the most significant challenges that we do have or face in agriculture is the water consumption or the water management. Smart irrigation systems guided by artificial intelligence have emerged, and those powerful tools to tackle this issue is very much important. Those systems have emerged, and now the plants receive the right amount of water at the right time. Very important in order to conserve the precious resource and improve the quality and the quantity of our harvest. But very much important, and today one of the experts and the professor from the University of Labra says is how we do the harvesting process. And just for you to know, in Colombia, the hand picking process that we are doing in the 99% of the total coffee plantation is done by our farmers, and is costing the 47% of the total cost, production cost. Is huge. So in order to be competitive, what we need to do is to address this issue in order to implementing harvesting processing with technology. For instance, what the one you see in the picture, that is, they are identifying which is the cherry or the apple to be harvested, no, with robots equipped with the cameras and obviously algorithm they are changing the game in those plantations. So on the other hand, and we can also see what you mentioned, Professor, that we also can feel, no, the fruits of the tree, as maybe Brazil has been doing in a totally different conditions, in a mechanical way in the mountains of Colombia. And what we can do then after is to select them precisely with artificial intelligence in order to select the ones that are now in a very good conditions. The second point today is the cost reduction through technology, because we know perfectly as a producers that we can control the prices, and it's a matter of fact. but we have to control the cost. This is something very much important. And cost reduction has been a perpetual concern of the coffee producers in Colombia. Thankfully, technology provides innovative solutions, and we could see that in the presentations. The abundance of the data that we do have in our plantations allow us to pinpoint those areas where the cost can be trimmed. That's important. And by identifying those most effective farming practices and reduce allocation strategies, we streamline the operations and eliminate the unnecessary expenses, ensuring for the coffee farmers an economic sustainability, something that we need to keep on having an eye on. There is a saying in Colombia, or just globally, that is very well known worldwide, that says that what is not measured, it cannot be controlled. So, in that sense, the supply chain management, as you mentioned here, is something very much important, having the data analytics and the supply chain management. For instance, the blockchain technology should find its place in our agriculture and the coffee farmer production, okay, in order to make a much more efficient supply chain. It offers not only transparency, but traceability. That is very much important, allowing us to track the coffee beans from the farm to the cup. This is not only reduces the fraud, but also promotes a fair compensation to our producers. And when consumers could trace the journey of the coffee from the farm in Colombia to the cup in Bengaluru, they are much more inclined to pay more, benefiting the entire chain. And obviously, as well, the energy efficiency is very much important. Okay, the sustainability is not only just a buzzword; it's a necessity nowadays. Coffee processing facilities are increasingly adopting energy-efficient technologies. And this is something that we need to keep on having very good support from the entire industry in order to put in place in every single farm in our countries. The solar panels, the biomass boilers, and the more efficient roasting machines, for sure, will not only reduce energy costs, but also reduce our carbon footprint, ensuring a greener and more sustainable future for coffee production. And the third one, Professor, because I see that here is the time up, is the opportunities for producers in the value chain. And let me explain quickly. I am convinced of the need of an opportunity for our farmers to participate more actively in the value chain. And this is something that I've been telling our people in Colombia. And something that, especially in this market in India, is taking a very good slice of the pie is the direct-to-consumer. This is something, Professor, that is very much important in India, for instance. The technology has democratized the coffee market, and the digital platforms, the social media, the e-commerce have empowered farmers to reach the global and the local markets directly. And this is something that we need to enforce from FNC. This reduces the dependence of the middlemen and allows producers to capture a much more significant portion of the business by creating a fairer and more equitable industry. We will start locally in Colombia, building the bridge between the farmers and the final consumer. And the specialty coffees, you know perfectly that the technological advancements that it's been doing in processing our coffee and adding value in the post-harvesting process, such as fermentation, such as drying processes, is very much important in order to keep on having this brand, the Colombian brand, the Café de Colombia brand, that has been always the very best in terms of flavor and profile. We need to keep on having these unique flavors in order to serve the worldwide consumer. Producers who invest in these quality improvements and technology will differentiate and have competitive in the long term. The market access as well. Remember the first day of this forum where barometer studies show us the trends of the market. We know now that the cold beverages are something very much important that is taking a lot of interest in the consumer. So by having this information, Professor, I'm about to close, by having this information, we can prepare ourselves and our farmers in order to have the right decisions and to put in place the programs and the processes in order to attack that market and to serve that consumers. In conclusion, Professor, the institutional capacity of the FNC has to be put at the service of the 548,000 families and provide vehicles to allow them to have a coffee growing to be much more sustainable and profitable. Thank you for your attention, and may your cup always be filled with the finest coffee of the industry, that is the Colombian coffee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, German, for your passion for the Colombian coffee. And at the end, you did not miss the opportunity to promote the Colombian coffee. And I wish each one of you should learn that your coffee is best in the world. You know, there is a saying in Sanskrit in India that Swameva Mragendrata, you become king of the market only if you think you are the king. If you think you are not the king, you will never be king. And this you need to learn from German, his passion for Colombian coffee. Give him a big hand. I think next distinguished speaker, Professor Eldemar Morelli from Federal Institute of Espirito Santo, who is going to tell you about the innovative methods for the youth engagement. No other country in the world has got the number of youth less than 29 years of the age this country has got. So probably you are at the best stage that you have got anywhere on the earth. And I think, you know, my young colleagues have got a lot to learn from you. You know, he is the professor and research and extension project coordinator in that Federal Institute of Education, Science and Technology at Espirito Santo. He specialized in the Brazilian coffee chain, and as you know, Brazil has been the largest coffee producer and exporter for long. Let's learn insights from him. Over to you, Professor Eldemar Morelli. May I request you to kindly stick to 10 minutes because I have one more speaker and he is telling me that my time is getting small. Carry on.
Bom dia a todos. Agradeço o professor que coordena a bancada e também preciso agradecer a um grupo que nos acolhe, que nos prestam serviços para nos garantir segurança, nos garantir um bem-estar nesse país, dando tranquilidade a nossos familiares e aos nossos apoiadores, que tenha certeza que vamos retornar para fazer as entregas que viemos aqui buscar. Então agradeço a nossa equipe que está aqui do Instituto Federal do Espírito Santo, que muito tem me apoiado para ter o melhor nessa cidade. O meu papel nesse ambiente... antes também eu preciso agradecer a organização e parabenizá-lo por essa magnífica estrutura montada para abrilhantar todo o café do mundo. E agradecer àqueles que nos oportunizaram estar aqui. Eu preciso fazer uma leitura antes de abrir a apresentação de um texto que eu coloquei disponível, que diz o seguinte: além dos desafios enfatizados pela WCC 2023, Nós temos também um outro desafio a superar, que eu posso acrescentar como desafiante, que é relacionado aos recursos humanos. Através da forma como é conduzida a gestão da propriedade e dos processos sucessórios familiares. Esse é um desafio também tão gigante quanto esse que estamos trabalhando aqui. Visando minimizar tal impacto, nós, no Instituto Federal do Espírito Santo, no estado do Espírito Santo, em Venda Nova do Imigrante, temos trabalhado em parceria com instituições público-privadas, com as cooperativas, para ampliar o diálogo com os jovens e com os produtores de café diretamente na propriedade, levando o conhecimento, levando a transferência de tecnologia como um fator preponderante para darmos sustentabilidade a essa cadeia. Desde 2014, temos motivado os jovens estudantes que têm ascendido à nossa instituição, que tem 25 campos distribuídos pelo Estado do Espírito Santo, com mais de 30 cursos do ensino médio ao pós-doutor, e com um viés dedicado à tecnologia, à educação de forma ampla, participando das ações de pesquisa e extensão. Então, o nosso papel aqui é mostrar para vocês um pouco da metodologia que nós estamos empregando para motivar esses jovens a empreender no seu negócio, a levar de volta para a sua família aquilo que ele tem de melhor, aquelas oportunidades que ele visualizou e participou dentro da nossa organização. Então, nós temos contribuído com essa forma de trabalho para a melhoria dos cafés, impactando positivamente na segurança alimentar e na sustentabilidade do segmento. Eu me chamo Aldemar Polonini Morelli, estive atuando na extensão e na pesquisa numa empresa do Estado do Espírito Santo, e em 2013 tive a oportunidade de adentrar ao Instituto Federal de Ciência e Tecnologia do Estado do Espírito Santo como professor, pesquisador e extensionista. Nós estamos sediados nesse camp, onde temos uma organização denominada Coffee Design, que é um órgão coordenado pelo professor Lucas Lousada, que congrega algo em torno de 36 doutores, trabalhando ciência, tecnologia, desenvolvimento de processos, desenvolvimento tecnológico, diretamente para a sustentabilidade da cafeicultura. Nós estamos localizados no estado do Espírito Santo, em Venda Nova do Imigrante. Nossos campos estão distribuídos por todo o estado, localizado nessa parte do Brasil. O que nós temos feito com o propósito de ampliar a sustentabilidade dos cafés brasileiros? Nós temos trabalhado um conjunto que envolve todo o profissional, não só os professores, mas todo o profissional que compõe a nossa estrutura, com ensino, pesquisa e extensão, proporcionando as entregas com eficiência, transparência, com custo-benefício voltado para a inovação. Para isso, também contamos com o apoio de todo um órgão envolvido com a cadeia produtiva. Então, nós temos os apoiadores privados, principalmente, e os federativos, que nos dão suporte para trabalhar através de um programa denominado Qualidade Total para a Cafeicultura, onde a gente trabalha diretamente com produtores e com estudantes, dois processos distintos. Um, através de cursos de médio tempo, com 80 horas, 150 horas, e de mini cursos realizados diretamente dentro das propriedades, onde a gente leva teoria e prática ao mesmo tempo. É como se nós estivéssemos transformando tudo aquilo que a gente desenvolve nas pesquisas como uma forma de colocar em prática. Então, nós entendemos que para que o produtor tenha sustentabilidade, ele precisa compreender de uma forma prática como colocar toda essa ciência gerada nos dias de hoje no campo. Para isso, o que temos desenvolvido para atrair jovens, para impulsionar essa cadeia? Nós temos buscado, através da nossa academia, um contato direto com os produtores, onde a gente discute suas necessidades, trabalhamos um plano de desenvolvimento junto com ele, para que possamos, através deles, transformar os processos, fazer com que eles produzam o seu produto com uma eficiência, com uma sustentabilidade capaz de superar esses fatores limitantes que toda a condição humana tem sofrido. Com isso, nós entendemos que estamos empoderando os agentes que atuam na cadeia produtiva diretamente a entender como trabalhar esse processo direto com o consumidor final. Então, hoje nós vamos dar uns exemplos para vocês de como os produtores estão se empoderando para ter acesso a esse mercado final, agregando valor, agregando sustentabilidade ao seu negócio. Não existe sustentabilidade se nós não tivermos fator econômico diretamente no bolso do produtor. A satisfação de compreender como a cadeia funciona de forma adequada é dando ao produtor a condição de participar e ter o retorno necessário. Trabalhamos algumas metodologias, naturais do processo administrativo para que os nossos estudantes compreendam como ele precisa seguir evoluindo com satisfação. Porque através dessa motivação eu consigo envolver esses jovens no papel de transformar a sua família, de ajudar a contribuir para que ela se sustente. Com isso eu estou minimizando ou mitigando problemas, de ausências, os problemas comuns em todo o processo produtivo, em todo o processo educativo. Envolvemos nesse conjunto os 5 fatores elementares para que a gente tenha uma efetivação desse jovem cumprindo o seu papel, que é as entregas. Porque quando nós pais trabalhamos para que nossos filhos tenham a melhor educação, nós pensamos que eles vão retornar para o nosso negócio, nos dando condição de se sustentar, de se multiplicar. Para isso eu tenho que empoderar esse jovem, eu tenho que trabalhar para que ele assimile os conhecimentos de forma a ser alguém com uma visão crítica, capaz de interagir, capaz de contribuir com a cadeia. Empregamos um método muito simples para que as coisas funcionem adequadamente. Esse autor, ele trabalha um conjunto onde diz o seguinte: eu preciso ler, eu preciso estudar, eu preciso ver, eu preciso envolver dentro dessa cadeia todo o processo para que eu tenha uma habilidade capaz de proporcionar o desenvolvimento. Para isso nós trabalhamos nossos jovens nesse conjunto, levando eles a criticar, a discutir, levando eles a entender e a praticar de forma efetiva. Então nossos alunos, eles têm participado de toda a cadeia produtiva da ciência de forma muito efetiva. Enquanto estávamos aqui, eles estão lá ministrando os treinamentos para os produtores, eles estão lá contribuindo para que a cadeia evolua de forma eficiente. Alguns exemplos do que nós temos feito. Nos últimos 4 anos, nós treinamos algo em torno de 2.000 produtores. Uma ação que acontece durante todo o ano de forma muito consistente, principalmente quando estamos em plena colheita do nosso café. No ano de 2022, nossos laboratórios e nossa estrutura de pós-colheita processou nada mais do que 205 experimentos, 205 experimentos com quase 5.000 parcelas experimentais. O que significa isso? Nossos 74 bolsistas vinculados aos projetos tiveram a oportunidade de participar de todos os processos que envolvem o pós-colheita do café, as análises, até chegar no consumidor final. Aqui também temos um gráfico mostrando como que isso está sendo feito em forma do café natural, do café cereja descascado para café arábica e café conilon. Como que nós estamos atendendo os municípios que estão no entorno do nosso campus. Nesse gráfico, a gente mostra o envolvimento de estudantes, de técnicos, de produtoras e produtores ao longo dos últimos 16 treinamentos que nós realizamos de novembro a março desse ano, novembro de 2022 a março desse ano. E um fator interessante, nessa demanda oriunda do produtor, nós identificamos que a classe etária, ela tem sido uma classe proporcionalmente jovem, que está buscando conhecimento para implementar um conjunto de tecnologias voltada para a sua sustentabilidade. Já estou acabando, professor. Aqui são uma forma agora só imagens retratando esse conceito que nós estamos trabalhando. Nessa daqui a gente mostra o que a gente faz para ter a rastreabilidade, para certificar os produtores. São imagens de dias de campo. E nesse fator, uma coisa que nós assumimos de responsabilidade. Nós não saímos para dar uma palestra. Nós saímos do campus para dar um treinamento. E esse treinamento precisa ser demandado pelo produtor, pela comunidade. É ele que organiza dentro do seu ambiente. Aqui é um exemplo, essa empresa Farm Coffee já é um grupo de ex-alunos nossos que montaram uma startup e hoje já está se tornando uma das maiores exportadoras de café da nossa região. Aqui são produtores que assumiram o papel de modificar o seu conjunto de processo. Aqui nós mostramos como que a gente trabalha para que nossos estudantes tenham a oportunidade de testar o que ele está aprendendo. Participação em feiras, mostrando o que ele aprendeu durante todo o seu processo educativo. Nessa imagem a gente está mostrando aquilo que veio ao encontro deste evento, do que esse painel está demonstrando. É a criação de um produto totalmente constituído dentro do nosso campus. A ideia se transformando após 3 anos em um produto. O próprio aluno que participou do projeto, ele está formado, montando uma startup para produzir e comercializar esse produto. Aqui como que a mídia tem proporcionado a amplitude da divulgação do nosso papel junto à comunidade. E para encerrar, mostrando esse conjunto de ações, eu quero enfatizar para vocês que esses são alguns exemplos de pessoas, produtores, que passaram por nossos movimentos educativos de profissionalização e hoje estão no mercado dando contribuição para a sustentabilidade do seu negócio dentro do estado do Espírito Santo. Aqui é o nosso campus, nossa equipe. Além dessa equipe, hoje nós temos outros que já ampliaram, o nosso papel. Esses são nossos apoiadores. E o meu muito obrigado a todos vocês, obrigado à mesa, obrigado a toda a equipe que participa desse movimento.
Thank you so much, Professor Eldemar. The problem is that, you can stop a manager, you can stop a director, but you cannot stop a professor if he starts speaking. So, Professor, thank you so much for the deep insight that you have given. And I think the way he has performed in his institute, provides a lot of opportunity for each one of us to learn. I wish that, Professor, you visit our institute and see how India is doing in the plantation sector. The next is, and thank you so much. It was, I think, extremely innovative the way I think you are helping the coffee plantation and the industry. Next, I have got brightest of the bright colleague with me is Navratan Kataria. Now, Ratna is the jewel. Let me tell you, Navratna, he has his mix of 9 jewels. So I think brightest of the bright is with me. And you don't learn anything unless you fail. The definition of success is enduring failures again and again. And he is one who set up 14 new businesses. Failed and set up, failed and set up. So if you need to learn a startup, you need to learn from none less than Navratan, all 9 jewels. Give him a big hand.
Okay.
And he is an expert. He is an expert on, the IT and the information technology. Has worked very closely with the AI and the NESCOM. So I think over to you, Mr. Navratan. Kindly, please go ahead with whatever you want to say.
Thanks. I'm in the space between your hunger, but I am sure you are hungry for some of the answers that I'm going to be asked my honored panelists here. Generally, innovation covers the whole crop cycle, from sowing the soil to the equipment, to the management of the farm, the irrigation, harvesting, sorting, supply chain. The good thing today we learned is also skilling. As Professor Fabio said, $1,000 to the harvesting operator is quite a sum of money. Could we involve AR, VR, metaverse kind of mechanism where German probably will help with us to devise methods of training irrespective of the language, the best practices across the continents to explain to these people how skill can be developed across the globe. So to Professor Fabio, what would be your take in involving what German and digital innovation can do to develop the skill of the operators, skill of the machine that you're using, the harvester, to do the computer vision to check the quality of the coffee that you have to pick up?
A experiência que tivemos com essa jornada toda de mecanização do Brasil mostrou que o principal fator que nós temos que evoluir é exatamente a valorização do homem. Eu acredito e trabalho com TI. O grupo de inovação que nós temos no Brasil vem desenvolvendo sensores para automação das máquinas. Nós temos no nosso grupo engenheiro mecânico, engenheiro elétrico, engenheiro de automação, engenheiro agrícola e também engenheiro ambiental. Essa é uma área que não se discute o crescimento que ela tem por vir dentro da agricultura, incluindo as máquinas. Podemos pensar em máquinas autônomas, mas mesmo assim precisamos de alguém atrás das mídias, dos algoritmos, para fazer com que as máquinas repitam os trabalhos possíveis no campo. É um setor que está crescendo. A parte de drones para pulverização está crescendo. Isso é muito interessante, vai crescer. Nós estamos vivenciando tratores que trafegam a lavoura guiados por GPS. Nós temos hoje um desenvolvimento de sensores para guiar a máquina centralizada à linha de plantio do café, exatamente para diminuir as perdas de chão. E publicamos um trabalho que chama Cafeicultura de Precisão, justamente entendendo que esse é um setor que tem muito a crescer.
Thank you. So the area that I come from is the digital world, and I'm sure, as Syngenta Marcus said, collaboration is the key. And as rightly said by Professor Rakesh also, if we have to survive in the coffee industry, you have to innovate. And the way that I look at is, you have your R&D, the universities have their R&D, the organizations, but if you can match them and curate with the startups, and we have a startup founder here, and you must have noted that she gave half of her time to all the other enterprises here. Thanks a lot, because they know what they want to sell. They know the problem that the adopters need, and what we are known as, some people, of course, Professor Joshi said, people call me Priest Navratan, and the reason why they call Priest Navratan is because we match and get married the adopting organizations to the solution providers are the startups. So what we are also looking for is a big adoption and collaboration between the countries that we are here for. India, no doubt, is the third largest ecosystem of a startup, and when it comes to digital innovation, I'm sure you cannot ignore us. This is the place which have been enabled by both the minister who talked yesterday, the day before, the coffee board, if you are aware, that they run a innovation center here, incubating a large number of startups here, startups who are focused on coffee. I would like to ask a lot of people here, if you have problems, your problems of the industry to be resolved and solved by the startups. The way that we work is, we do not say, take the startup to the adopting organization and say, take it. No, that's not the way that it would work, because you as an adopting organization know exactly what the domain problems are. You know the market strength, you know the market problems, and you have the financial and the brand muscles. Startups usually don't have any of them, but they are techies. They can be very frugal. They can develop. If you want a red button on a blue shirt, they will give you tomorrow. These two strengths, if you put them across on the table, together, magic can be created. And this is where I see a very good collaboration can happen. What Germain explained to us is the digital part of it. And the digital part probably covers almost everything that you talk about in the coffee industry. And there's not a single section of that industry's requirement which cannot be fulfilled today with collaborative efforts of digital as well as non-digital parts of the innovation, which a lot of universities and other organizations are doing. So I think this is our job, and I would really love to have you giving us problems, and we will, across the continents, across the countries, try to solve it, see what are the best practices we can take from one country to be trained to another country across the boundaries, because startups have to cross boundaries. They don't really look at any geographical boundaries or the country's boundaries as their market entry barriers. With that, I will close and hopefully ask Professor.
Thank you so much, Shri Navratan. Now I think, one or two questions we can take if anybody has got question. Anybody has got a question we can take, otherwise we can close and thanking all our panelists. Because I think I am told people want to have lunch. You have question? इसको दो क्वेश्चन दो. Only one question is allowed. Carry on. Because my colleague want to take lunch. We cannot listen to you.
Check.
I'm Dr. Sudha Srinivasan from Indian Institute of Plantation Management. Traditionally, the coffee here is a shade-grown coffee. Whereas Brazil, you have shown the technology, harvesting technology, the machineries that you are used. So that is for the monocultured coffee. So do you have customized machineries where, we could use it for shade-grown coffee?
No, not.
This is with respect to the technology, part of it.
No,
Yes.
I think anybody, you answer it. It's okay. Your technology? You please kindly carry on. Please carry on. You go ahead, Professor.
Sim.
I always give chance to a professor.
Thank you, sir.
Obrigado. Sim, existe essa tecnologia, não com máquinas automotrizes, que seriam realmente aquelas máquinas que tiveram que se adaptar à lavoura, mas também tivemos que adaptar as lavouras às máquinas. que são as máquinas portáteis, que podem trabalhar debaixo de sistemas agroflorestais. Haveria a possibilidade, inclusive, de colocarmos máquinas automotrizes dentro de ambientes agroflorestais da cafeicultura, plantando simplesmente as árvores fora da linha dos cafeeiros. Mas eu vejo que isso não é o principal passo. Nós começamos no Brasil com a semi-mecanização, com pequenas máquinas assistindo aos homens. Isso já trouxe um impacto muito grande. Roçadoras, pulverizadores, dessadores de café, já foi uma grande evolução para a mecanização no setor. Existe hoje máquinas que podem trabalhar em declividades de 42%, vamos chegar a 50% e basta. Não precisamos mais do que isso. Então temos vários recursos, sim, inclusive para sistemas agroflorestais.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm under deep pressure to close this session because all of you want to eat. Carry on. You want me to stand?
For a moment, the chair and the panelists. I would request Shri Shivkumar Swami to kindly come over, Deputy Director Extension of Coffee Board, and give away mementos to all the esteemed panelists. First of all, I would request Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi to kindly accept a memento. Kindly go, sir. Professor Joshi, सामने आ जाइए and please accept the felicitations. You tell them. Thank you very much, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, for exceedingly controlling, and at the same time, the time was not enough, we know, but still, we could manage the whole thing very efficiently. Thank you, sir. I would now request Professor Fabio Moreira da Silva to kindly come forward, Federal University of Lavras, Brazil, to accept the felicitation from Mr. B. Shivakumar Swami, Deputy Director Extension of Coffee Board. Thank you, Professor Fabio. I would now request Ms. Brianna Dickey, the founder and CEO of Crop Connex USA, to kindly come over to accept the felicitation. Ms. Brianna Dickey. Yeah. Thank you very much. I would now request Mr. Marcus Velez Moro, the Business Development Manager, Global Coffee and Aroma Protection, Syntegon, to kindly come forward and accept the felicitation. Thank you very much, Mr. German. I would now request Mr. German Alberto Bahamo Jaramillo to kindly come forward and accept the felicitation. The Chief Executive Officer of the Colombian Coffee Growers Federation, Mr. German. Thank you very much. I would now request Professor Aldemar Morelli, the Federal Institute of Espirito Santo, to kindly come forward for the felicitation. Thank you very much. And finally, I would request Mr. Navaratan Kataria, the Startup and Innovation Ecosystem Management of NASCOM. Yeah. Thank you very much for all the panelists for accepting the felicitations. Now, kindly come to the phone. All of you kindly come forward for a photograph, and then we'll break for lunch. request all of you to kindly carry the memento with you. So because so that was the session on startups and innovations, product development and packaging. Once again, let's all give a round of applause and thank the entire panelists for an excellent session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now please note that the next session, now we'll break for lunch. We're delayed by about 15 minutes, but not to worry. So I would request you all to kindly come back to the same hall by 1:55, 2 p.m. so that we'll be able to start the session at around 2 o'clock. Till then, have a great time, enjoy your lunch, and namaskar.